Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Smishak's Custom Baits. Rick Smishak here. Um, Today, we're going to talk about my trip to the Valentine National Wildlife Refuge outside of Valentine, Nebraska. I was about 30 miles south of Valentine. I went there because I read about that place in a magazine article. I think it was Field Stream, maybe. Back when I was in high school, like 80, 79, 80, 81, somewhere in there. And I didn't know it at the time, but I started a bucket list. I didn't even know what a bucket list was. But it was a place I wanted to go and go fishing. And it took me till I was 60 to make it. But I finally made it. I had a great time. I'll talk about all the things, everything that happened there. I camped at a place. You can't camp on the refuge itself, but you can camp at several wildlife management areas that are nearby, like Ballard's Marsh, which is where I camped. I was the only one who camped there. About me, the birds, the ticks. One night I heard deer right outside my tent. I hear their hooves, they're walking around, which was kind of cool. I didn't open up the tent to take pictures or anything because I didn't want to scare them off. But it was cool that they were there. The ticks, yeah, you have to use tick repellent. You have some sort of bug repellent that makes ticks run away. Because if you don't, well, you'll just be loaded down with ticks. I found a couple on me, but they hadn't started feeding yet. They hadn't attached themselves yet. One of them, I threw it into the pot on the stove. I lit the burner, and it walked right into a little drop of liquid that was still in there, and just instantly cooked. Bye, see ya. I don't have a problem doing that to ticks, bloodsuckers. They're creepy, they're nasty. Maybe I should have a pet possum to eat those things. If you don't know, possums are the number one predator of ticks. They eat an average of 5,000 ticks a year, each one of them does, and they eat 90% of the ticks that they encounter, which is pretty cool, I think. Yay, possums. But yeah, it's I'll have a couple pictures here for you in a second. It rained. I spent 5 nights up there, and it rained 3 of them. But my tent, my yurt, was fantastic. I'll get into a little bit later, my last night there. But it was a nice tent. It worked out real well. It withstood the winds pretty well. And the rain, it just shed the rain, no problems. But yeah, it was the camping area was pretty nice. It had it was pretty. It's considered primitive. It had a few picnic tables there, and had a water pump thing, hand thing. You pump it up, and it had pit toilets. You know what those are? It's a they put up a little building. It's a permanent shelter. And then there's just a pit underneath it where they come in, they pump it out every once in a while, and that's your toilet, which is a whole lot better than nothing, or having to bring your own portable toilet and then clean it out. Okay, it's loads better than that even. So yeah, let's get to the next part of this. Okay, so the fish in there. There's 20 some lakes on the refuge, and 9 of them are open to fishing. I saw a report that it might have winter killed. Some of the lakes might have. In fact, it looked like maybe 6 of them had winter killed. And when I got there to the refuge, I got my camp set up and went over to the refuge headquarters, and I talked to the guy there, and he said that that Clear, Dewey, and Rice lakes were spared, and the other 6 had very substantial winter kill. He said he wouldn't even recommend trying them out because there's no fish. Game and Parks Commission did a a survey this spring on the fish and found lots and lots and lots of dead fish in those 6 lakes. So I went over to Dewey Lake. It's the biggest one that did winter kill, and I could put my kayak in. Clear Lake has. I didn't choose to fish that lake because it has a very high population of carp, and outside of black crappie, um, very few game fish. For whatever reason, the destruction that carp wreak in a lake, in a body of water, doesn't affect black crappie. I was thinking about going over to Clear Lake, but I'd pretty much run down the battery on my fish finder, so it was going to be hard to find the schools of crappie. So I chose to go to Rice Lake instead. You have to walk into Rice Lake, and we'll talk about Rice Lake more later. But Dewey Lake, I fished that lake for 2 days. The first day I fished for about 5 hours. I was pretty tired. That was that might have been my longest session on the kayak so far. That 5 hours. The next day I spent 7.5 hours out there on my kayak in 20-mile-an-hour winds, and that was definitely my longest session. Um, I was so tired after that and fighting the winds for that long that I slept 11 hours that night. I went to bed, bam, just gone, dead to the wind, dead to the world. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. Those winds, but I wasn't marking fish anywhere in the lake. I wasn't marking fish really. Um, well, I guess out in the deepest part on the east end of the lake, I marked a few fish, but nothing like what you would expect. I mean, the fishing in these lakes is legendary. Um, and come to find out, the guy at the Refuge headquarters was wrong. Dewey Lake, and I'll show you a screenshot I took of the report as far as the oxygen levels in the 9 different lakes. Dewey Lake had the lowest oxygen levels of any of the lakes up there this last winter. So it definitely winter killed. It left carp, and I'm going to put a link in the description about how carp survive low oxygen levels that kill off all the other game fish, which doesn't seem very fair, does it? We get the trash fish, you get to keep the trash fish, but all the game fish are dead, which is kind of sad because Dewey Lake had some pretty big bass in it. In fact, the 2022 fish survey, Dewey Lake had the biggest bass that they found at 21.2 inches and almost 6 pounds, which isn't huge for people who are from Florida or Texas, even down south. But here in Nebraska, that's a decent sized bass. And on the numbers on the screenshot you're going to see, it shows that Willow, Clear, and Rice Lakes were the only 3 lakes that had oxygen levels high enough to sustain fish populations throughout the winter. I think it was Willow. Yeah, Willow Lake was marginal. It was a 1.7 mg/L. I'm not sure what those numbers stand for, but you need 1.5. And Dewey was 0.6. Okay, Dewey definitely winter killed, and I fished that lake for 12, 13 hours trying to find fish. I saw some carp. In fact, I saw some really big carp, and I saw a bunch of turtles. A blue heron scared the crap out of me. I didn't know it was there, and it made this big raucous noise and took off like 20 feet from me. I almost crapped my pants. Ah, but I saw deer both evenings there that I was fishing. I saw a deer come down to the lake and for water, and that was pretty cool. Interesting to note, though, also that Dewey had some pretty, I don't want to call it turbid water. It was greenish color, some algae bloom going on. But the the visibility was only 4 or 5 inches. I could drop a lure over the side of the kayak, and in 4 or 5 inches, I couldn't see it anymore. So that was interesting. I was, what can you do? Just laugh and go on. Find a new place to fish, I guess, too. So let me check my yeah. I talked about the rain. The first night I was there, it rained most of the night. Um, Woke me up a couple of times. The second morning I wake up and there's sounds like it's raining, but I can tell the sun's shining. And then I notice it's raining bird poop. I set up the yurt underneath the tree, and apparently dozens and dozens and dozens of birds roost in that tree at night. The yurt was a gnarly, gnarly mess on the outside. So I moved it, cleaned it off, moved it. There's plenty of water there at the campground to use. And I used the pot that I had to keep throwing water up on there, and then I had a rag I used to help finish cleaning it off, and then I moved the tent. I moved it out from underneath the dang tree because that was just, if I hadn't moved it, the mess on the tent when I came home would have been unfreaking believable. It was that bad, right? So, lesson learned. Don't park your tent under a tree, especially one that has lots and lots of birds in it. That's pretty bad. So, let's show you a few pictures, and we'll get to the next segment. All right. So, hope you enjoyed the pictures. So the next thing I did was I did a little bit of research, and I talked to a friend of mine who's he's won a couple of minor bass tournaments. He's made it to the KBF National Championship tournament 3 years in a row. But I talked to him about the fishing there at Dewey Lake. He helped me out, and he suggested, "Are you sure that maybe it didn't winter kill?" I said, "Well, the guy at the Refuge said no, and then I did some more research, looked up the numbers again, and told him, yeah, you know what, it probably did winter kill. That's probably why I'm not finding anything. I'm not getting anything here." So the next day, I knew that Rice Lake I'd have to walk in. So I took a couple of Ziploc bags and I separated out some of the lures I had. Um, I noticed that I was way short on 4/0 extra wide gap hooks. So I ran into Valentine and grabbed a couple packs of them. And then I walked into the lake, Rice Lake. There's a huge chunk of it that is unfishable from the shore because of dead trees. They're just too close together and whatnot. I tried wading. I just had I had shorts on, and I put my water shoes on when I walked down. That was kind of a mistake. I should have had waders because there's leeches in that water. Super clear water, super clear water. But there are leeches in it, and I found that out the hard way. Plus, the biting flies over there they were just everywhere. The biting flies were, and I took insect repellent that was designed to repel mosquitoes and ticks primarily. I should have just got some Deep Woods Off with its high DEET content, and I'd been a whole lot better off probably. But I was fishing in there's a little bit of the areas, and most of the fishing I did there, I did because I was waiting. There's a lot of there's a big chunk of the lake that has this fairly shallow, and the vegetation comes up above the surface of the water. Right offhand, I'm not sure if I have a picture of that, how good of a picture I have of that. But at the end of this little segment, I'll put in some pictures for that too. But I tied on a frog, an enforcer frog. I had one one frog in not yours, the color not yours. And I missed the fish twice. It came up, it took the frog off the surface. I felt his weight and I tried to set the hook and pulled the frog away from him. It came back and hit it a second time. I was going to crank it in real quick and toss it right back out. And it came back and hit it a second time. Same thing. Didn't get the hook set. So I was like, wow, that's a good sign, you know. But too bad I only have one of these frogs, right? And about 5 minutes later, I hooked a fish, and I got it. I actually got it in. It was a decent sized fish. I think it was probably around 14, maybe 15 inches. Nice, healthy fish, nice, chunky, um, the thick body, the deep body, showing that it's feeding well. It's plenty of forage for it. But there was bass feeding all throughout that area. You could see them. Um, but with the leeches, I just didn't want to freaking keep wading out there. You know, things that suck your blood like ticks and leeches, they're just creepy. So you're allowed to drag a kayak down there or a belly boat. You're also allowed to wade. So I have two kayaks. I have a Pro Angler 14. They're 135, 140 pounds, empty without the pedal drive and whatnot. Um, and then I have a Mirage Outback that I think is 90 pounds. Same deal with not rigged. I have one. I have one dolly with the big balloon tires on it, which I'm not sure if I should take the balloon tires cross country like that. They're more designed for sand and whatnot, or if I should just get two dollies because they just go in the scupper holes, and you can put one kind of towards the back and one kind of towards the front, and it'd be like a little four-wheel deal. Um, but but if you guys have ideas, it's probably a third to half a mile that I have to drag it, and I have to drag it back out too. So, but if you guys have ideas for how to get a kayak down there, I really don't want to take buy a belly boat just to go fish that place. Um, but getting one of the yaks down there would be nice. I at first I was considering trying to go back up and drag the Outback down there, but then I remembered I didn't bring the pedal drive for it or the seat or the paddle even, so kind of screwed there. Um, but is Rice Lake and Duck Lake. Duck Lake winter killed, but Rice and Duck had the largest populations of bass, um, highest densities of bass, and the biggest uh, proportion of bass that are keeper size. Pardon me. Um, and Nebraska, that's 15 plus inches. So I really wanted to catch a bunch of bass, um, but I didn't. Only caught one. That whole trip, I caught one fish. The whole trip. In large part due to the fact that I fished the lake, didn't have any fish for 2 days. My bad. um, Part of that was due to the misinformation, the wrong information I got from the guy at the Refuge headquarters. Um, I just figured maybe it was a misprint in the information I saw online. Well, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the guy just misspoke. So, but I wasn't the only one who fished Dewey Lake. There was the first day I was there. There was a guy in a boat pulling his boat out. Well, about the time I got there, he's pulling his boat out. Um, the second day, there were two different boats there, and they didn't stay long. Um, and then the day I went over to Rice Lake to fish, I was driving by Hackberry Lake, which winter killed, and there's some poor slob out there fishing it. I didn't have the heart to tell him. It looked like he was having a good time, so I just let him go, let him be. Um, So the next day after Rice Lake, um, I didn't go to Clear Lake because I mentioned that I'd run the battery down to my kayak, and no way to charge it out there. Which I will probably get another battery. I can put two of the same thing in. Um, I will probably also get a stand-up bar for at least the um, Pro Angler, and um, a power pole for the Pro Angler. I might do the same for the other yak, but that would be further down the road. I'm thinking maybe a power pole for Christmas for myself. I think that might be a good idea because fighting that wind in the 20-mile-an-hour plus winds. I mean, there was enough wave action to rock my kayak like this. You know, that was an interesting sensation. But it was okay. I mean, there was no danger of the waves weren't high enough to roll the kayak over or anything like that. But trying to maintain position in those kinds of winds, um, even with a 360 drive, I tried putting the stern into the wind and then making the drive be reversed and just slowly pedal in reverse. That worked okay, but it was a lot of work. Um, so the last day that I was there, I went and did just a little bit of sightseeing. There's a bridge um, outside of Valentine over the Niobrara River. It's the only bridge of its kind in the United States. It's a cantilever arch bridge that's connected with one pin. And I'm going to leave a link to the wiki article on it. But it was built in 1932, designed by a Russian immigrant. Um, and I didn't take a picture of the bridge, but I did take a picture of the Niobrara. I ran out on the bridge real quick and took a picture of the river. I could have taken a picture of the bridge from another bridge, but there was a lot more traffic on that bridge, and I didn't feel like getting run over. Not, at least not that day, you know. So I skipped that part. I'll see if I can find a picture to put after this segment. Then I also walked up to an observation tower that was built in the 30s during FDR's Put America Back to Work program, where they hired something like 2 million men across the United States to go do public works stuff like roads, bridges, building this observation tower so they could watch for whatever, fires maybe, I don't know. But I walked to the tower. I have a couple pictures of it, and then you can't go all the way up to the top of the tower anymore. You can go up to what was the second level, or maybe it's actually the first level, the ground floor, and then that next level. You walk up to that, and that's the observation deck now. They took the next level of stairs out. You can see that in the picture of the tower. But I took a few video clips from around the tower, so you can see what it looks like up there. The sand hills, the lakes and the refuge kind of sit in a valley in the sand hills, and you can see the dunes, I should say, not ridges, they're sand dunes. Some of the dunes in the sand hills are 400 feet tall and 20 miles long. And they say that all this sand came from rivers and creeks that dried up, and the wind just blew the sand up into these huge dunes. Well, how many of these rivers and creeks did they have to dry up to have that much sand blow? If I remember, I will try to put a picture that shows a map of the sandhills. You see just how big of a chunk of Nebraska is covered by these sand dunes. It's pretty amazing just how many there are, or just how big of an area it is. And it's like, wow, where did really all the sand came from river and stream beds? Really? It's almost kind of hard to believe. But the walk up there is pretty cool. It's about half a mile there. From the trailhead to the tower, and then back, and then a half mile back. But after that, after I went and saw the bridge, and I went and saw the tower, walked up the tower, then I went back to Ballard's Marsh where I was camped, and I put my Pro Angler in on Ballard's Marsh. Well, I figured that it shouldn't be too difficult to get past the lily pads out to where the deeper water was and where there should be open water, I thought. Well, it took me 40 minutes to get out there because it was the lily pads, and there's coontail in the water too. So between the coontail and the lily pads, it was just brutal trying to get out there. I'm paddling because I can't really use the pedal drive very much. It's just not much use because there's so much vegetation. And then when I got out there past the lily pads, I saw that the coontail was still in the water. The water wasn't deep enough to make that not grow. And it was just anywhere from 2 to 3 inches to a foot below the surface. And so it was still just unfishable because just too much vegetation in the water. And it took me 30 minutes to get back. I just kind of tried to power through with the pedal drive and the paddle, and but it was a ridiculous amount of time to get back. It was only maybe 100 feet or so. Yeah. So, but that lake would be a good one to fish earlier in the spring before the vegetation gets so bad. There's just pike and black crappie in that lake. So the pike probably make it so the black crappie aren't very big. And if there are some big ones, there's not very many of them. But the pike in there, I think are decent sized, and I've never caught one. So that was a reason to go out there and try to fish that lake. But the vegetation is so bad that the lake is more known for the duck hunting there than it is the fishing. Okay, no problem. So the fishing was kind of a bomb, but that's okay. I still had a great time. My last night there, I wake up about midnight and the wind is just blowing like no tomorrow. And the rain was starting to rain a little bit. And then all of a sudden, the back end of the tent just collapsed. The center pole came down. I was still laying on the air mattress, and I was like, okay, where's my phone? I can't find my phone. Of course, it's pitch dark out. I can't find my phone at first. So I'm like, okay, where is the lantern at? Or where was it? And I'm starting to get off the air mattress, get off the bed, and I felt my phone. So great. I turned on the flashlight on my phone, and I was able to grab some stuff, take it out to the truck. When the wind died down, I set the tent back up. What had happened was there's 8 stakes for the bottom of the tent, for the floor of the tent, and there's a total of 10 guy ropes for this thing. 2 of them are specifically for the door, and then the other 8 are they coincide with exactly where the stakes for the floor are. Well, when I moved the tent, the 3 stakes, well, actually total 6 stakes that came out, were in fairly soft dirt. It just wasn't very firm back there. So it blew when the wind got going really hard, really strong. It blew those apart, blew those out, pulled them right out of the ground. When the wind died down, I set the tent back up, which it wasn't too difficult. I just had 6 stakes to pound back in, and that center pole to stand back up. But then the wind started blowing really hard again. As soon as it died down, that time it was raining by that time. Not real hard yet, but I quickly got everything that was still in the tent into the truck, tore the tent down, and it's still laying here on the floor. Tore the tent down, tried to get it rolled up and folded up and put into the bag, and it was just with the wind that was still going on. I mean, it wasn't as bad as it was before, but it was still pretty stiff wind, and I just couldn't get it in the bag yet, and so I just kind of wadded it up, shoved it in the front passenger seat of my truck, and then slept the rest of the night in the truck. So I had a pretty eventful trip, but you know what? Things happen. I'm going to put a screenshot from my weather app that'll show you the storm system that was right smack dab in the middle of. I'll show you that. So that was interesting. But then when I woke up, I made sure I had everything picked up, and then I went I drove into town, filled my truck up with gas, and drove home. It's almost a 5 hour drive to get there and get back. 5 hours each way. But I'll have to go back to fish Rice Lake as soon as I figure out exactly how I'm going to get a yak down there. And most likely the Outback. And well, maybe not as soon as. I might wait until like September, and maybe I'll be able to fish. Well, Clear Lake won't be any better because the carp will still be there. And Willow Lake, the other one that didn't winter kill, you have to walk into that one too. So we'll see. But I definitely want to go back at some point. I want to fish Rice Lake again. This time for my yak or one of my yaks. And maybe I'll wait until the lakes recover. We just left a about 3 years of essentially drought conditions. They were getting a whole lot less rain than normal, and this year we're getting a lot more rain up there. So, and this is a cycle that happens all the time. So this cycle is the wet cycle is starting at just the right time. The Game and Parks Commission is already planning on restocking the lakes. They are hoping that there's enough fish left in the lakes to also serve as brood stock, which maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. But definitely have to go back when the fishing has recovered, because if that fish I caught at Rice Lake is any indication of the quality of the fishing that can be had there, yeah, I'm definitely want to go back and fish that again. And oh, by the way, next week I'm going to show you guys how to make the color, not yours, that I was getting strikes on and caught that one fish on at Rice Lake. And I named it "Not Yours" so that when your buddy asks you what color you caught that fish on, you can say "Not yours." You'll be like, "No, man, really, come on." Okay, I named a color mine for the same reason. But next week I'll make "Not Yours," show you how to do that, and hopefully you guys will be catching fish with it too. All right, I took a quick look at my notes. And I think I've talked about everything. Now it's just a matter of doing transferring the videos and the pictures to my computer, and then doing the editing. But if you liked what you saw, folks, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave any comments down below. Let me know what you think, especially about how to get the kayak and get a kayak down there. I would actually probably prefer to be able to take my pro angler because it's just set up more for fishing. But I probably end up, I don't have a problem with taking the Outback either. So if you have ideas for that, go ahead, leave them down below. I hope to do more videos like this one in the future where I go out, go camping, go fishing, and then come back and give you a report, tell you how I did, how I didn't do, um, all the things that happened, that didn't happen, things that went wrong, things that went right. But it's just great uh, getting out and going out, being out in the outdoors again, doing some fishing, even though I didn't catch a whole lot. Um, but it was still fun. I still had a great time. And so if you liked what you saw, folks, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, um, and share the videos with other people. We're up to 600 and crap, I forget how many, 662, I think, subscribers now. So we're getting there, and the subscribers are coming at a relatively steady pace. Hours watched are increasing, so it shouldn't be a whole heck of a lot longer, and the channel will be monetized, and it'll be all because of you guys. All the watching that you do and all that, the sharing, whatnot. So I appreciate every bit of that. But until next time, folks, tight lines, calm waters, and God bless.